Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Satisfactory. I'm Max Involved, and today we're gonna kind of follow up all of this like extensive train stuff that we did in the starter area. So today I kind of want to get this stuff a little bit more fleshed out, a little bit more finalized, I guess we could say. And yeah, so with that out of the way, let's hop right into this. All right, and everything we're doing over here kind of relates to this spot right here. And this is the space elevator spiral. Now I have to enable magic mode, and we're kind of flying around here because this is just, honestly, it's too high up to really work on without this. And until I get power to these rails, the hover pack won't help either, right? So again, this is everything that's going to kind of what we're all working towards, right? So let me kind of explain what we're looking at here, right? So I had built this in previous episodes, and I think everybody understands that this is eventually going to be a spiral, right? I want trains to come from down there to be able to come all the way up here, trains from up here to be able to go all the way down there, right? So let's kind of work through what's going on here, right? Right now, and I'll be honest, I've worked on this a little bit and I have failed a little bit, and I've got some other ideas. So I'll kind of explain this the best I can. This is by no means going to be kind of a how-to on how to do this, but hopefully you can at least get some tips and tricks if this is something that you're looking at doing too, right? So now let me tell you what I've done before that has not worked, right? I've made these spirals before. You'll notice I've connected this rail and this rail, but you'll notice that they are no longer here. And let me tell you why, right? So over here, I like to run my trains, and I can kind of show you on some foundations, right? I like to run them 8 meters apart. So what does that mean, right? Well, if I have a rail that I'm running down the middle of this foundation, the middle of this box to this box is 8 meters, right? So when I have two train lines going, they can go past each other easy peasy. And the reason I like to do that is because then I can put down like my little support right here. You know, when I do my decor. Oh, let's get rid of that. And then, you know, I can just kind of like hook it all together. Boom, boom, boom. The rails sit on top of there and it looks all nice, right? And I had originally made the spacing over here 8 meters. And if you look, the middle of this track to the middle of these would be 8 meters, right? And what I ended up finding was that towards the bottom, where I would kind of transition from one of these tracks into the other one, it was just a lot of clipping, right? So I didn't like the way that looked. So what I ended up deciding was that I'm going to try to space these out 12 meters. Now, what does that mean? And what are all these walls up here, right? So these walls are really for spacing and more vertical than horizontal spacing, although they're going to come in useful for horizontal, right? Because what I really want to notice here is if we go up and we select the top of the wall that's in line with the top of this, you notice we have 9 walls. So that's 36 meters of elevation that we need to traverse with our spirals. So why is that important, right? Well, the technique we're going to be using with beams, it's tricky, and I'm still, let's say, I'm still perfecting it, right? So let me kind of explain what I want to do. So I've ultimately decided, and I think right here is going to be the starting location, right? So let me zoom, right? So if I have this, and if I cut out the middle here, you'll notice it looks like that, like everywhere, right? That's kind of the idea. So what I'm doing, actually, is I'm just putting an extra foundation. And we don't need this wall. We don't need this wall, right? So I'm putting this extra foundation on the outside. Because what I want to do is instead of going, 8 meters, which is the middle here, I'm going to go... I'm going to go 12 meters. Because I think that'll work, right? So, why is that important? Well, I think that'll give me enough space. And again, this will make sense when I kind of go a little bit farther. But for now, I want to expand these platforms out a little bit. And maybe we'll do a little bit of this, a little bit of this, right? And so the idea is that before, you'll notice I have this green and red one. Before, I was kind of starting one spiral and ending it like there. And that was kind of too steep, I think. I didn't really like the way that looked. Or actually, I think I was going... No, I think it was something like that. So what I want to do is I'm going to do something where the inside, let's say... I need to go to the middle here. Let's say that the inside track is ascending and the outside track is descending. Yeah, so we'll go... Let me see if I can place this. We'll go that way. Now, I'm doing this because I want this track, in a perfect world, the track would be... It would have the exact same curve, and it would go down and have the exact same spacing the whole way. But with the technique I'm using, I'm finding that's not super easy, right? So here's what I'm doing, right? If you'll notice, my idea is that if I'm descending or ascending from right here, then I want the connection point to be directly under it, right? More or less. I want it to level out directly under that. Which means I need to take this height, this 36 meters of all of these, right? 9 times 4 is 36. And I need to divide it by how many spaces I have. And it's not just, let's say, the hexagon spaces, but it's also the corners. Because these tracks are all subdivided. If you look lower, and I've shown this in a previous episode, I have these arcs, right? Where they go from essentially one side to the middle of another side. But up higher, I've subdivided them. So really I have 12 rail sections around here. So that means I'm going to take my height difference, my 36 meters, and I'm going to divide it by 12, which will be 3 meters, right? So that means every time we would get, and you'll notice, I have these concrete pillars right where the tracks split, right? So that means every time I get to a split in the track, I need to descend by 3 meters, right? And so the way I'm going to accomplish that is I'm going to come down here. Let's get rid of this, right? I'm going to come down and let's see. What I want to do is somehow, I'm going to get rid of this. And let's do this. Let's put on a 4. I just need to be 1. And the reason I'm doing this is because I want it to be perfectly spaced out, right? That's not important. So what I'm going to do for this track, if I'm going down, or I guess I'm coming up here. So this part isn't super... This part is where it would actually be leaving, right? So I should actually put this in. Because it's very much a relationship between both. So I don't really need these as much anymore, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this beam, right? And if this is the first point that my train is going to start elevating, I am going to come up 3 meters. Actually, I'm lying. I'm going to do that here. This is where I'm going to come up 3 meters. This is where I'm going to have nothing. And that means from here, if that station is where it's going to start descending, then what am I going to do is I'm going to go up 36 and subtract 3. So now I have 33 meters, right? And really, I'm just going to continue that all the way down. And I'm going to alternate, right? So that was 3. So let's get rid of this wall. Let's get rid of this wall. And I'm going to come up 6. And for this one, I'm going to come up 33 minus 3, 30, right? And again, the walls were just kind of to help space things out, so we're not going to need them, right? And I'm going to continue that all the way around. This one's going to get higher as it spirals until, you know, we're at like an area over here. And I'll put these down. Right? And so the last one over here, if this is the start, right? So this would be, let's see. If this is the descent, that means this one, would be 3. And this one would be 33. So really they have an inverse relationship, right? So the 33 on the inside matches the 3 on the outside, and the 3 on the inside matches the 3 on the outside, right? So eventually you're going to have one that's on the opposite side, where it's both, what, 18 and 18, right? Something like that, right? And then what we're going to do from there, which is kind of the important part, right? How am I going to... Let's actually place this one, because I think I need a little bit more, right? So we'll do that. I just need one. And then... Nope. We'll go zoop. And the next part is kind of how everything really comes up. Okay, so that's what, 33. So this one needs to be 30. And then that one needs to be 3/6. This one needs to be 9. Okay, so how am I going to get this spiral going, right? Well, I'm going to use beams again, but we're going to use freeform mode. And what I think I want to do is, let's see here. I kind of want to go... this will be fine. This will be fine. So I'm going to take this, and I'm just going to kind of point it right here. Right? And then I'm going to take this, and I'm going to do kind of the same technique that you've seen me do before, where I just extend the beam out. Right? This is a way to extend a beam out in length using default mode. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to freeform. I'm going to try to get in the center there, and I'm going to come to this beam. Right? And this one won't reach. It'll be out here. I'm going to grab the small frame pillar. Delete this one. Take this, go to default, extend the beam. I'm just going past where the support is, right? So that's kind of the idea. And I go back to freeform, see if I can kind of get in the middle of that beam, right about there, and do the same thing here, right? And so you'll see that's building this sort of network of beams, right? And I would do that all the way down, and then at the bottom I do the same thing. Now, a couple things to note here. A couple things to explain why it gets a little squirrely, right? This beam from here to here is different. You know what? And I think I'm just discovering this on the fly. Let me try something, right? Let me give something a try here. I'm going to get rid of these. I'm going to go down here, and I'm going to do a 36, right? Let's try this. And that way I can keep everything, whoops, 4R. That way I can keep everything consistent, you know? This is actually not what I had exactly done before, so this might actually be a better result. Okay, so this part is kind of important. Actually, you know what? That's why I did it, because, well, maybe it won't be an issue. Okay, so here's what we're going to do. I'm going to measure now, right? I'm going to go into freeform mode, and I'm going to go, let's say, 22. Or, let's see, what's this full length? Full length is 40 plus 12. So that's what, 52? Half of 52 is what, 26? So what if I do this? If I go 26, make a mark, right? That's just a mark. And I do the same thing. I'm going to measure in the same way. And the key is to try to get as close to the middle as you can. It may not be perfect, which is fine, right? That's kind of the downfall of building with this technique, right? So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to see if I can... I'm going to put some rail down here, right? It's not super important. It just needs to be somewhat straight. Because the idea is that we want to go from this track to that track. But again, let's see here. Okay, let's try this. I know I started this off as a tutorial, but I'm kind of trying new techniques while I'm showing this. That beam is like getting in my way. Okay, we'll do that. So let's say I'm going to connect over to here, right? And I want a really nice smooth connection. So we'll do that. For this one, essentially what I'm going to do is when I have the rail come from here to here, I want, well, really, I guess I want, oh, you know what? Let me try this. Hold on. Let's do that. I'm going to try to take this, connect it all the way over here. Right? Really gradual curve. And then from here, I'm going to go from my marker to my other marker. And you'll notice two things. Number one, it seems because I'm going the same length, it joins up parallel to my marker almost at 90 degrees. But there's something else. If we go down, and I'll unlock it, right? You have to be careful when you're placing this. There's two surfaces. There's this surface on my marker, and there's this diagonal surface on the rail. You'll notice right here, there's a little difference, right? So, depending on where, you'll notice it kind of goes up and down, right? What you don't want is this right here, because this is causing the rail to kind of dip down and come up. It's trying to level out because it's snapping onto the surface of my marker. We don't want that, and I'll show you why. Because if I place my next one, and I'll place it some arbitrary distance, and we look on the side, we have this kind of hump that we don't want, right? So that means what we want to do is we want to make sure it's really snapping onto the the diagonal surface, right? So again, you see that's the hump. That's not. If you look at the top of the screen there, you should see the hologram kind of changing, right? So I want it like right here. And then before I even look at it, I'm just going to go to some arbitrary location, right? And now you'll notice it's a nice smooth curve. Okay? But this illustrates kind of the problem with doing this technique. This will work. This will make it all the way down. And it's what we're going to do. But I want to point out something. Look at the spacing in between the rails here. It looks somewhat consistent, but it will eventually, right? This is 12 meters. This part right here. So you just have to understand that it's gonna get tight. But I don't think that's a huge problem, right? So let me kind of run that all the way for both sides, and I'll show you what the result looks like. Okay, and so with everything done, you get something that kind of looks like this, right? And this looks very complicated, and it kind of is. And I'm not, let's say, 1,000% happy with it, but it's kind of accomplishing what I need. The hard part is where, I'm trying to create my spacing and all that, right? But this is the full project, or the full product right here, right? You see we have our rails there, we have our connection there. So any rail now on either of these lines, the center one is obviously the level one, right? But you'll notice you can come off and go out, and I also swapped kind of where the connection points are, so they're a little bit farther out. And this is all subject to change too. Kind of how this area right here is roughly where I had my foundations, in line with this tower. And I'm trying to make these curves sweep a little bit more, but you'll see how kind of, it's just not super clean, and I'm still working on the technique, but I think this at least gets the job done. And yeah, so this is kind of what it's going to look like. And if I kind of back up more, it is going to kind of look crazy, honestly, especially once I get all the decor finished. But yeah, so this is the idea, right? So if you're on the inner track and you want to go up, you can just kind of go up this way. It spirals all the way up, connects up, and boom, you're in the middle, right? And same thing here if you want to go down. So the idea is that inside loop is going to be up, outside loop is going to be down, right? But something I realized while I was doing this is that I'm not going to be able to, right? Like if I want, I can't have my next down connection right here. There's no room. So what I've decided I'm going to do is I'm actually going to swap sides, right? So from, let's say this is the number 1 ring, this is the number 2 ring. the number 3 ring, right? So between the 2 and the 3 ring, I'm going to have this side be where all the connections happen. And then between the 3 and the 4 ring, I'm going to go back and back, right? So the last set of connections will be on the inside here, just like these ones will be. That way, none of the stuff interferes. It'll give it kind of like a double helix design, kind of. So I think it'll end up looking cool when it's all said and done, and maybe when I kind of like perfect the technique. But you'll notice like all the curves are really, really consistent all the way down. So I got better as I did this more. You know, very smooth curves. They don't flatten out anywhere, which I'm really happy with. The only part that I'm really kind of struggling with is these parts right here where I'm trying to create the connections, because I'd love it to be, you know, very, let's say, equidistant and smooth. Like this kind of bulge out right here, you know, it kind of just, it is what it is, right? Functionally, I think it's fine and all that, right? But now that I have at least this test done, I'm realizing that like I don't need to worry about going up that high, because I still need to get the trains from over there to over here. So I thought this episode, I want to try to at least get some train testing going using this loop right here. Get some trains, loading stuff up, bringing stuff maybe somewhat over here. And my idea was that I'd use maybe this level right here. I'm not 100% sure, but kind of this whole floor as a train logistics floor where I can have, you know, my train stations, and everything would kind of filter its way over here to eventually go all the way up into where my my starter base, or I guess my main base and my my storage room are, right? So let's go and kind of look at the area over here. And so this is where we left everything off right here. The train lines just kind of end right here, right? So my idea was that I'd go out, I don't know, somewhere out here, you know, kind of wherever the high point is. And I want to go about, let's say, I don't know, like 16 meters off the ground, maybe? Something. Actually, what if I put a foundation down? Where's the actual world grid? Okay, the world grid is going this way. Yeah, so one thing I've noticed, right? This level, right? So the top of the space elevator platform and this right here are the same level, right? And that's by design, right? So one thing I want to do, I thought about having the train kind of terrain follow, but then it'd have to kind of go up quite a bit, and I don't know if I necessarily like that idea, because I kind of want to leave the floor here open for whatever. Maybe there's trucks, because you've got like a bunch of copper right there. I think there's water right here, or is it water? Yeah, it's water. There's just stuff on the ground that I want to be able to access, right? So my idea was that once I get to crest this hill, I'll just have something that's about that level out here, right? And then the other thing I wanted to do is over here, basically make, you know, like a thing somewhere in here. You know, let's do a 4. Something where I can kind of loop the trains out. You know, I don't know about how much space I need. Help if I build things the right way. Right, so something like this. And then, you know, we could just like take that out and take that out, right? So the train can enter the loop, do what it needs to do, eventually go up, eventually go down, and then exit and go back to where it needs to go. Because right now we have it set up for 3 trains that are going to be on this singular line, in addition to all the other trains that may be using this whole thing, right? So then my idea was like, all right, so we'll go out, you know, X amount of distance this way, and then we'll eventually kind of aim in this direction, probably using beams, and then I can use this upper area to kind of run, because, you know, this is lower than where we're going to be up here, so there's a little bit of, you know, there's a little bit of gap there that we got to kind of run, right? But I got to figure all that out. So let me do that, and kind of run some test tracks, and I'll bring you guys in and show you exactly what I mean. Okay, so like I mentioned, I'm going to run the trains this way, and I've started to put together some of this stuff now. I had to make some decisions, and I'm using a lot of beams, right? Foundations are great when you're running parallel or flat to the ground, right? Because if you're doing this or like default mode, you might as well just use the foundations. They just work so much better for everything. They make those little curves that we're gonna have to make over there like super easy. But when you're doing things with elevation changes, I just find it so much easier to go with the beams, right? Because the beams, they're all gonna get deleted and all that, right? So I've brought these out, and I guess what I could have done hypothetically is just left them on the ground and kind of had like this gentle slope from here onto there and just kind of kept going. But I wanted to elevate it just for whatever reason, honestly. And again, these are all 8 meters apart, right? So we'll be able to kind of do like the double track supported design like we did over here. And that's kind of the idea, right? And if you'll look, like these were made with beams and they're pretty straight tracks. Like if you're not actively looking, you wouldn't be able to tell. You know what I mean? So let me kind of show you, this curve stuff is not super difficult. And again, I'm literally just like taking the tracks out and just doing that, right? Of course, flying makes it a lot easier, but if you have a hover pack or whatever, it's essentially the exact same thing. And I like to make the tracks the same, not necessarily the same amount of foundations, but any 2 tracks that you put together should just be the same length, right? Now for here, what I like to do is I give myself about 3 foundations from the curve. I can just connect them all the way back there. And again, 1, 2, 3 foundations. And I can connect that there. It just makes these curves flow very nicely. Why is it switched? It's almost like I built it twice. And there you go. Like super, super simple. They're nice and parallel. I imagine that when I go to do the supports, they'll be fine too. And that's another reason why I like to use these foundations, because when I do go to put the supports in, it like right about here for the decor. Well, I guess I just do, let's do vertical mode. Come down 3, and then I switch to a 4, and I zoop. When I get rid of all the foundations, come on now, right? When I go to get rid of them, I can just place my blueprint directly down. And then everything is perfectly where it needs to be. So that's like the easy part for doing it over here. When I'm doing it kind of like freeform, like especially in this curve, where I'm going to have to, kind of just eyeball these pillars and then get rid of them and then, do all that. There's all that, right? And, you can kind of see like that's what I had to do up here. Obviously, I've got a lot of them all put down. I haven't got around to putting in the metal beams in between them all because you'll notice some of these are longer than the others. I'm still debating on how exactly I want to make this look supported, right? Like, I may end up, using kind of the big supports like this on some parts, but these are really meant to kind of ground the structure, and I don't know 100% how I want to do that. I may end up just leaving them all short and just make it look like it's like levitating, or with what I'm going to do over here, maybe it looks a little bit different, right? But the idea is that over here, I can kind of, do something like this and essentially do the same thing, right? Like this part will have the taller structures supporting it. So maybe it'll look like this is all being supported by these platforms that are coming off of the main base, because I want to do kind of the exact same thing. But anyway, the idea is like I want for a test, I'm going to fill this out with train stations. And I'm going to run all these trains with... oh, God, I actually don't like that. I'm going to run them all with signaling and everything, right? So let me do that, kind of get that figured out, and then I'll bring you in, because it's going to take me too long to figure it out on camera, and I'd rather kind of walk you through something that's working than show you all of my mistakes. And let me tell you, it definitely took some figuring out, right? So you see we've got some trains going. I've got 3 trains going right now, and there's things I need to clean up, especially with the signaling and mostly like where it's placed and things like that. But yeah, let's kind of take a look here. So I'll start here in the little station line. Now these are temporary stations. These are literally just for testing. You'll notice I have 2 stations, and again, just for testing. They're all set to, these ones are set to load. The other ones are set to unload, and that's very important, right? So the idea is that the trains will come in. I don't even know which one that is. But I've got the ST1, so starter 1, starter 2, and then steel 1. Or ST1 is, yeah, starter 1, starter 2, and then steel. But this is a really good time to kind of practice learning about path and block signals. So from what I've seen, right, you want block signals, again, at the stations. You want path signals where they go and are trying to look at the same path, right? So these 2 path signals are smart enough to know that if there was another train here and it was trying to go in, it would stop if it saw another train was going to take a path in here, right? So that's kind of how those work. And the way that they seem to like to function for me, and again, I pinned a comment in the last video that from somebody who explained it way better than I think I could. You'll notice like this is slowing down, right? Because this is a path signal here, right? So a train approaching here, and you'll notice that's the steel train, and that must be the other main base train, or the starter factory 2 train. You'll notice it's slowing down because it's looking for this path signal right here. So this one, right? This one and this one work together along with, I think, the block signal over here. Like again, or I guess, wait, is there a block signal somewhere else? Maybe not. I don't know. Okay, so look at this white area. Okay. The white part of the track is all technically one block, right? What I could do, and probably what I should end up doing, is like putting a block signal over here. So that way, you know, if I take this path signal, you'll see this red area right here is the part that's controlled by these 2 path signals. So they both know, like, if that train wanted to continue around here, any train coming through here would stop because the path signal would tell it was going. If it found out that it was going this way, then this path signal would let both of those trains go because it knows the one trying to leave isn't going to intersect here. But that might not always be the case, right? I may end up having something over here where I need a train to come through and then split off, right? So you want to set your signaling up to account for any possible interaction, not just what might happen right now, right here. Unless you're really good and you can remember, right? So I set these all up just to kind of test them, and everything seems to be like working all right. But you see it's slowing down because it's approaching this path signal. But then it's getting essentially told, hey, there's no pathing issues. So now it's being let through, right? And yeah, it seems to be the round trip here seems to be pretty quick. I'm actually curious if we're even going to be able to keep up, right? What do I want to do more here, right? These block signals are very arbitrarily placed. I literally just put them down to see how they work. And what I want to do is something similar to this. I want to be placing all the signaling together, right? So when I finally go and build all of the infrastructure, like the decor, anywhere where I'd be putting like a big support, maybe I'll put signaling too. Just because I want them equidistant spaced and everything like that, right? Do we have any trains coming? Is it safe? It's fairly safe. Yeah, I kind of want to show you guys how the pathing works in action, because I think the way we got this set up is actually perfect in the sense that it uses all of the rail the way it's supposed to be, right? So let's see. We have right there. Okay, so we have that train. That's one of the starter factory trains. We have the steel train right here. But look, that one's slowing down because that's a path signal right there. And they're both waiting for what? Right? So this is being told to stop. This is doing a thing. Okay. So I think it got word that this one was going to go this way. So it stopped. Now these two are pathed. You know what? I think if I put a block signal right here, I think that would not have stopped. Because you see how that's green? And now that that went through, this one goes, right? So the way this is laid out, every train uses every bit of this rail, right? The steel one is the one that goes around here. The two starter base ones, they use the bypass. So I don't know. It just makes me really happy that the whole rail network seems to be working just fine. Like you see right here, you know, like it's bypassing everything that it's supposed to. And it's, you know, coming up on the path signaling here because you might have two that are trying to go in there, but there's no conflicts. So it's checking here, but oh, it got the green light. So now it's going to fully just like bypass what it needs to bypass. Exactly how it's supposed to. So hopefully this makes a little bit more sense, you know. Hopefully, it kind of just illustrates how these signalings work. And if you watch these block signals, you'll see that as soon as the train leaves that block signal, this one turns green, right? And that's kind of what you want to do. I made the mistake earlier of having like this be my last block signal until all the way at the roundabout. And trains were literally stopping right here until the train all the way at the end got out of the block. So that's kind of an illustration on why you would want to have multiple block signals. In my case, I don't know how, you know, maybe 40 meters or whatever, whenever I have like the big supports. But yeah, that's just kind of the idea there. So hopefully that all made sense, guys. Next steps, I want to continue on this spiral. So get the spiral just at least fully built out now that I kind of have an idea. And look, that's two trains going in the same path right there, the same block, because of the path signals. So it's just super sick that it's all working exactly how it should be, right? So next steps, I'm probably going to put the train stations for real up on this level, because I'm kind of earmarking that whole back part as kind of the main base. So production, storage, all of that stuff is going to happen in here so that we can access it all in our hub, right? So what does that mean? That means I'm going to need to be able to have the trains go up, right? I'll probably still leave this here. And I actually made a visual kind of marker here to show like, hey, these two are connected. These two are connected. These two are connected, right? So, you know, we got the first set of ramps and stuff going there, the second set there, so on and so forth, right? So I need to at least get this working, this set right here. I need to put train stations in over there, and I need to start making storage rooms, right? I need to make it so that this stuff is going somewhere, so we can actually like use the station and see kind of what our throughput is, right? So anyways, guys, thank you all so much. I hope these, specifically these episodes, are making sense, and that you're kind of understanding the vision and maybe even illuminating kind of how to use beams and spirals and stuff to make kind of different train designs and all that kind of stuff. If you have any questions, put them down in the comments. If I don't know, I know people that watch these videos know. And yeah. So anyways, guys, thank you all so much. You know, I'll drop it at the end of the video. If you haven't subscribed and you're still here, hit that subscribe button. You know, the channel's grown quick, and it's because of all you guys, and I really appreciate it. So anyways, guys, with that out of the way, thank you all so much, and we'll see you in the next one.